The Forgotten Birthday, and the Teacher Who Saved the Day. It was a chilly autumn morning, the kind where the sun barely peeked through the clouds and the golden leaves clung stubbornly to the branches before drifting softly to the ground. The air smelled of rain and distant fireplaces, and the little school on Maple Street buzzed with the sound of children laughing, calling out to their friends, and rushing to their classrooms before the bell rang. Among them was Emily Turner, an 11-year-old girl with chestnut hair neatly tied in a braid and a backpack that seemed slightly too big for her small shoulders. Today was supposed to be special. It was her birthday. Emily had gone to bed the night before, imagining balloons, laughter, and maybe a small cake with candles. She pictured waking up to hugs from her parents, a quick "Happy birthday, sweetheart," before they left for work, and at least a whispered reminder from her best friend Lily during recess. But morning came, and none of it happened. Her parents had been in a hurry, juggling phone calls and coffee cups, barely glancing at her as they rushed out the door. No happy birthday, no smile, just the sound of car doors slamming and an empty house growing quieter as they drove away. Emily told herself it was fine. They were just busy. Surely at school someone would remember. But as the hours passed, nothing happened. In class, her friends chatted about weekend plans, games, and TV shows, yet no one looked her way with that excited grin that meant, "I remembered." Even Lily, who usually never forgot anything about Emily, didn't say a word. Emily's heart sank lower and lower, but she kept her face still, pretending she didn't care. At lunchtime, she sat under the old oak tree in the schoolyard, slowly peeling the crust off her sandwich. A few kids ran by, laughing, holding hands, their joy filling the air like sunlight. Emily looked down at her lunch and whispered to herself, "It's just another day." But deep down, it hurt more than anything. She had never felt so invisible. What Emily didn't know was that someone had noticed. Mrs. Parker, her teacher, was a woman with kind eyes and a heart that seemed to always know when a child was hurting. She had watched Emily all day, the way her usual bright smile never appeared, the way her shoulders slumped, the way she stared out the window during math class as if she were somewhere far away. Mrs. Parker remembered the date on the school records, October 12th, Emily's birthday, and her heart ached for the little girl who seemed to be carrying sadness no one else saw. When the final period rolled around, Mrs. Parker quietly slipped out of the classroom for a moment. She hurried to the teacher's lounge, searching the cupboards until she found a leftover cupcake from the morning meeting. She grabbed a napkin, a spare candle from the art supplies drawer, and scribbled a quick note on a blank card. "Happy birthday, Emily. You are special." She smiled to herself, knowing it wasn't much, but maybe it would be enough to make Emily feel seen. Back in the classroom, Mrs. Parker called everyone to the reading circle. As the students settled on the carpet, curious but unsuspecting, Parker cleared her throat and said warmly, "Before we end the day, we have something very important to celebrate." She held up the cupcake, the small candle flickering like a tiny star, and looked right at Emily. "Today is Emily's birthday!" For a second, the room was silent. Emily blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. Then suddenly, the classroom erupted in cheers. Her classmates clapped, some shouting, "Happy birthday, Emily!" and Lily jumped up, wrapping Emily in a hug. The entire class began singing, their voices loud, cheerful, and slightly off-key. But to Emily, it was the most beautiful sound in the world. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling over as she tried to say thank you, her voice shaking. She looked at Mrs. Parker, who knelt beside her, and whispered, "You deserve to feel special today, Emily. Never forget that." The cupcake was small, just one candle, but to Emily it felt like the biggest, most wonderful gift anyone could have given her in that moment, the gift of being remembered, of being loved. After class, kids scribbled quick birthday notes on scraps of paper and handed them to her, giggling shyly. Lily apologized over and over, saying she had meant to bring a card tomorrow. Emily hugged her and said it didn't matter, because right then, Nothing mattered, except the warmth filling her heart. That evening, as Emily walked home, clutching the small card from Mrs. Parker and a handful of notes from her classmates, the world felt different. The streetlights glowed softly, and the cool breeze on her face didn't feel lonely anymore. She realized something important. Kindness doesn't have to be grand or planned. Sometimes it's the smallest gesture, the simplest act of noticing someone, that can change their whole day, maybe even their life. Years later, Emily would look back on that forgotten birthday not with sadness, but with gratitude. Because of that one act of kindness, she learned to see people differently. She learned to watch for quiet sadness in others, to reach out when someone seemed invisible, to never underestimate how much it means just to say, "I see you." And Mrs. Parker's words would stay with her forever, like a gentle guiding light. Sometimes the smallest kindness can make the biggest difference. It was a truth Emily carried into adulthood, one that shaped who she became, a person who made sure no one around her ever felt forgotten on a day that should have made them feel loved.